Welcome back to the special conversation. We are discussing the fine print of Budget 2025. This budget was all about the Aam Aadmi and, our taxes. There was no mention of corporate India, no mention of even new manufacturing companies. And they were hoping that their concessional tax rate will be extended. But I don't think that's happened.
Absolutely. So, there was a widespread expectation that the concessional tax regime applicable to new manufacturing companies, the sunset clause for that, will stand extended, but unfortunately no announcement on that front. The silver lining in the cloud is that as far as startups are concerned, the tax holiday which they are entitled to, which is 3 years out of a period of 10 years, there was a sunset clause out there as of 31st March 2025. That has been extended straight away by 5 years. So that's a very, very welcome move on the part of the finance minister. One other important amendment which is applicable to transfer pricing regime, to simplify transfer pricing assessments, the finance minister mentioned that a taxpayer can now opt for consolidation of transfer pricing assessments in a block of 3 years. So get 3 years assessed together. And apart from that, a further rationalization and liberalization of the safe harbor regime, I think, which will augur really well as far as MNCs are concerned, which undertake intra-group transactions with Indian entities.
Yeah, so a lot of these have been long-standing asks and they're getting addressed. So I suppose these, respective sections would be fairly happy. Which brings me to another, important part of our financial services sort of setup and landscape, which is the IFSC GIFT City, where a lot of entities now, foreign banks, Indian financial institutions, everybody is trying to build a presence over there. And there were lots of announcements, several heads that were covered. Samir, what did you take away from it? And, how much further have we moved in that quest for making GIFT City a true international hub?
Look, I think, again, we discussed this, almost every budget has said something about IFSC on a continuing basis. So I think that trend continues. So that's the positive part. 2-3 call-outs again, there are a number of things that they've said. One is that there is, GIFT City is also being used as a center for FPIs to issue ODIs. And I think one of the things that was being asked was that presently, only if you are a banking unit issuing an ODI to a non-resident, then the income on that is not taxable. They have extended that to say that any FPI issuing an ODI to a non-resident, that income will not be taxable. So I think that's one. Second is that there were a bunch of sections like for the banking units, for asset management, for aircraft leasing. These were having a sunset clause of 31st March 25 in terms of the date by which they needed to commence their operations. That has now been extended in one shot to 2030, which therefore, so they're not doing it year by year, which is what they were doing earlier.
Yeah.
So now it's, straight, every year we were asking for the extension, which didn't make sense. So I think it's gone straight to, 2030. And the third thing I would call out is on treasury centers, right? And, as India is getting more and more mainstream with the global financial world, treasury centers and group treasury centers are an important concept to borrow and lend between group companies where there is, deficit or surplus cash. And to give that an impetus, what they basically said is that, if there is a company which is in GIFT, which is a treasury center, and if that company is involved in a group lending activity, then the deemed dividend tax provisions, which is 222E, will not apply. And I think that was a big impediment. Today, under the domestic law, if there is a company which is giving a payment by way of advance or loan to a shareholder, then to the extent of accumulated profits, it is taxed as deemed dividend. It is that you didn't give dividends, you gave a loan, so we will tax you as dividends. That has been excluded in the context of the treasury center functionalities. Of course, this is only for inbound structures, which means that the entity has to be a foreign company as well as the group entity needs to be listed. So that was a big positive, I thought, that came in.
My God, I think we need to do a whole half an hour, threadbare to understand how a lot of these issues of GIFT City have been addressed. But, you sound fairly pleased and optimistic on the measures that have been announced. So that's good news coming in. So now just coming to final thoughts, and Radhika, so what we've heard today is, positive move forward on personal income tax, like the gentlemen have been saying, whether it's, startups, whether it's GIFT City, positive sort of, developments over there. The market was unhappy because the market was latching on to this whole capex piece,
Yes.
right? Probably the market thought that we'll have some magic wand, big capex numbers, and that didn't come through. It was a more measured 10% increase in capex. So when we look at the overall environment now, and we look at our equity investments or even fixed income investments, where does this budget leave us?
So I don't think it's going to be a huge driver of market in aggregate, but it will move sectoral stories meaningfully. And I can explain that. Look, I think as far as capex, this year instead of doing 11, they did 10. Next year, optically, if they do 11 lakh, that's an increase. But someone can argue, and the market can argue, that the trajectory is downward. So perhaps all the push that was around manufacturing, defense, infra, etc., in terms of sectors, which were sectors that had really dominated retail portfolios, that might sway a little towards consumption. We've already seen that sector rotation happening. So I think some of that is going to start happening and going to accelerate. You saw some sign of that today. Anyway, those consumption stocks have been down in the dumps for a while. Manufacturing has been trading at 70, 80 multiples. So I think that will happen. Don't forget, I think the environment of slower earnings growth and global volatility still continues. So don't expect budget to be a boost in the arm and a turnaround. But I think the long-term India story still stays as exciting as it is. So your long-term investments, I think, still stays exciting. There's a little bit of rotation in the middle.
Okay, all right. Sanjeev, my wealth, my money, my prosperity. What's your advice now that the budget is out of the way?
I think I personally feel this is going to be a game changer budget. What they have done is that they have, killed the story of black money. At least one segment that, today, 12.75 lakh rupees, you can pay taxes. I think everybody will want to create that wealth, and that wealth in white. And that white wealth will now go into properties. So the property prices, the official prices of property will go up, the taxes will go up. It'll have a huge impact on financial services company, home loans, the category of people who are eligible for home loans, category of people who are eligible for credit cards. It's going to be an exceptional. So I think this is going to change the Indian economy on a foundational basis. So I think that is going to have an impact on the stocks and the stock exchange. So I think we are going to see an incredible growth. I'm more bullish today than I was yesterday, and I'm incredibly bullish. The next few years is going to be very, very good. So I think it's a great time to invest. I'll be moving a lot of my money from debt into equity personally.
Okay, all right, great. That's a lovely optimistic note to wind up this discussion on. I can tell you that I'm personally happy because in my reporting career over the last many years, we keep talking about tax ops or, tax relief for people at the bottom end. Sometimes tax relief for even the super rich. The middle was always left out, and finally the middle has been addressed in this budget. Thank you very much, Samir, Himanshu, Radhika, and of course Sanjeev for joining in and sharing your thoughts with us on Budget 2025. Well, that's it on this special telecast. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue on CNBC TV 18.